Governments always tell you they are working for your financial freedom. They twist their words using fancy terms like stability, growth, and opportunity. But if you look at the truth, throughout history, states have quietly played financial tricks to keep ordinary people poor and concentrate power in their own hands. The strangest part? These tricks are never new. For centuries, the same scenarios and schemes have repeated. Only the packaging changes, the names are different, but the goal remains the same: to enrich the few and make the majority dependent. Let's start with the oldest and most terrifying trick: inflation. When a government spends more than it has in its treasury, it usually has two options. Either it raises taxes, which is never on the agenda, or it quietly devalues money. It changes the purpose of money, prints more, and gradually erodes the value of every coin in your pocket. The masters of this were the Romans. In the 3rd century AD, to cover war expenses, they progressively reduced the silver content of the denarius. Over time, the silver coin in your hand became mostly copper, with only a thin silver coating. While the empire claimed, "Everything's fine," anyone using that money was effectively paying a tax. Prices skyrocketed, savings vanished, wages depleted. This was a silent tax. The same games are still played today, only now, central banks do it instead of mints. In the Middle Ages, another method emerged: conditional loans. The kings of England, France, and Spain forced wealthy merchants and guilds to lend money for wars or palace construction. Of course, saying no wasn't an option. Refusal meant confiscation of property or severe trouble. Repayment was often promised, but either never came or was made with worthless money. Governments could spend freely, while merchants lost their capital. The trick was disguising coercion as a patriotic duty. Then came a more systemic foundation: government debt and bonds. When the Bank of England was founded in 1694, its goal wasn't to serve the public but to raise capital for war against France. Wealthy investors lent money to the state by buying bonds, and the government paid them interest. Sounds nice, right? But who actually funded that interest? Ordinary people, through taxes on salt, beer, and cloth. The scheme was simple. The rich earned safe interest by lending to the state, while the poor paid the taxes funding it. This was a flow of wealth masked as national finance. Even today, the reason government bonds are considered safe investments has a lot to do with this reality. Fast forward to today. These games have become more sophisticated. Open spending and debt. Governments run trillions in deficits under the pretext of infrastructure and employment. But most of this wealth flows to defense contractors, corporate bailouts, and subsidies. When it's time to pay the debt, social spending is cut or taxes rise. So the debt is for the people, but the burden falls on them, while returns go to bondholders. Bailouts. In the 2008 crisis, banks were on the verge of collapse. They were saved with taxpayers' money. Who benefited afterward? The same banks. Profits are private, losses are socialized. The trick is here: what was called saving the system was really shifting losses to the public. Pension systems. For years we paid into state pensions. But instead of saving it, governments spent it immediately, replacing it with an IOU game. This system works like a Ponzi scheme, where the young fund retirees. As populations age and the system strains, reforms raise retirement ages and reduce benefits. Promises are broken. How do these games last so long? perception management. Inflation is sold as economic vitality. Mandatory sacrifices are called patriotism. Borrowing is presented as investment. Bailouts are called stability. Pension cuts are brushed off as reforms. The language hides the truth. Wealth flows from the bottom to the top, from the majority to a few. One of the most dangerous modern games is quantitative easing. Central banks inject trillions into markets during crises. This money inflates the prices of assets like stocks, bonds, and real estate. Who owns most of these assets? The wealthy. This flood of money makes asset owners richer, while ordinary people see their purchasing power eroded and savings consumed by inflation. Another is hidden taxation. Instead of raising income taxes, governments hike VAT, excise taxes, and fuel taxes. The biggest hidden tax is still inflation. Salaries may appear higher, but real purchasing power declines. It's a choice, not an accident. Why does this matter? Because these games are ongoing and accelerating. Inflation eats away at your savings. Debt burdens rise every day. Bailouts have become normal policy. The system is designed to enslave you further and reduce your real wealth.